I think the folks are going to want us to address the elephant in the room that we did
What's
address
that?
off mic. What the hell happened to your face?
Oh, yes. I my beard trimmer died mid mustache. I had half of my mustache trimmed up. So then I looked like a Dr. Seuss character.
I see.
And without a trimmer to continue to adjust it, the only tool I had at my disposal was my straight razor. So I just took the whole beard off. So no one, let me assure you, is more shocked and appalled than my loving wife, who, when I emerged from the bathroom like a ghostly apparition in the steam billowing around me, said, "Ah!" And so I'm definitely in the market for a new beard trimmer for, the health of my marriage.
Okay. Well, those of you who don't watch on YouTube, I guess you'll just have to imagine what Josh looks like without his beard.
I wonder if I sound any different. Like, do I sound
It's probably like
beardless?
different acoustics because like the beard was probably like absorbing sound, like the stuff that recording booths. So now it's like crisper or something.
My voice starts cracking while we're recording, and you'll know why.
Hi, friends.
Howdy, y'all.
Good evening.
And welcome to Muppet Sex and Trauma. I'm Sara Ezzat. I make the Fat Culture Critic videos on YouTube.
I am Josh Gosdin. Do not adjust your set. And I am a big old nerd.
And with us today, we're going to really confuse you because we have another Sara.
You can call me Sar for this recording.
Sara and Sara.
Yeah. I occasionally go by a monosyllabic name. Why not?
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I met you both at about the same time. And prior to knowing either of you, I had never known anybody who pronounced their name the way that you two both pronounce your name.
Your life is too Anglo focused.
It really has been, let me tell you. It's been whitewashed.
Sara comes to us from the wonderful channel 5x5 Productions. Good?
Thanks, yeah.
And I love your recent one on Wicked.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I love Wicked. It is not going to win at the Oscars tonight, and that's okay.
It already won for costumes.
It won in my heart, and that's okay. It won in my Letterboxd, which I never had one before, but then I was like, I should start watching movies because I'm not a movie person. And there was the comedy of logging my films is that you can see written out the 8 times that I watched Wicked in a row, uninterrupted. It's nothing else in between. I think it's very funny to see it visually. Like, yeah, I really did do that, and that's okay.
It did win for costumes.
And it did win for like set design or something like that. Production design. Yeah.
Yeah. I would have rioted if it hadn't.
That was polar.
There was nothing that even touched it for costumes and design.
And you would know too. So
yeah. I still haven't watched a bunch of the main contenders, but yeah.
Anyhow, thank you. And thank you. I appreciate it. And that is my channel. And I need to get a little bit better at uploading regularly, but that's just how it goes.
Yeah. I might or might not know something about that.
It is, yeah. When I see channels that upload like every week, I'm like, what are you doing better than me? Why? How are you a better person than me? You just
multiple times
manage your time so well. Yeah.
I just show up on other people's channels and support. Like,
yes.
That's all I have to do.
Well, I heard a phrase recently that I really like, which is comparison is a thief of joy.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I can't help but do it all the time, I'm going to try and remind myself. I've been meaning to bring you in for a while, but it's been a while since we had one that was episodic enough to really bring someone in with no grounding. And even then, I think we completely lost you, didn't we?
Completely. I mean, I can follow a plot, but there was just like, there was just a lot of, I think, presumption of understanding dynamics and relationships. And I was just like,
We're currently in the middle of an arc that built off of 3 converging previous arcs.
Oh, perfect.
That came out of the first 2 arcs of the show. So really, that's all it is.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's just 3 arcs that spawn from 2 arcs that are converging now in another arc.
Exactly.
Well, the funniest thing is they were trying to bring new people in season 4, and well,
They were or they weren't?
they were.
Okay.
They were trying. The network wanted more eyeballs, and so they were trying to be a bit more accessible.
Yeah.
But
And it's not. The thing is that I don't think it's inaccessible, but I think it's difficult with any show to just drop in the middle. I just think, I just think it's challenging because even if it's like a bottle episode or it's a self-contained story, it's like, okay, but you don't understand the relationships between the characters, which is, the big emotional engine. And it's like, you can't know that without actually having like spent that time, it's just, I think it's just a little tricky. There's not like a substitute, I think, for like, I read up on it. I know that John and Aaron have had a thing. I know that Scorpius is like in his head, in his brain or something.
No, this particular iteration is not in his brain.
Okay, it's not. See, I got that wrong. All right, I was like, he's a worm in his brain.
You were close.
So Scorpius is a ruthless bastard who is half peacekeeper, half Scaran. Who are the two main fascist organizations in this universe. One of whom is the cops, and one of whom is the Soviet Union, essentially. No.
Okay.
He's previously tortured John because John has magical wormhole knowledge in his head that was put there by race of ancient aliens. And
why'd they put that in his head?
To help him find his way home.
Okay.
And also because like he is unique and special, and the first one that they encountered who they thought maybe could handle it and all that kind of, hero stuff.
He is Dorothy Gale.
Heard of that, yeah.
And Glinda, the ancient alien race, who was masquerading as his daddy, gave him the ruby slippers in the form of this unconscious wormhole knowledge that he didn't have access to consciously, but was supposed to guide him back home because he ended up in this thing by just getting sucked into a wormhole.
Previously on Farscape.
Terribly unfortunate, yeah. So it was like an act. So it was like a nice thing. It was like a genuine, like, here's some wormhole knowledge.
Yes, it was good intentions.
Okay.
But then ruthless bastard Scorpius found this in his torturing of John, and is desperate to get the wormhole knowledge. So he put,
as you do.
So he put a chip in.
Why can't they share the wormhole?
So one of the things that this
do you
show
give
has
a weapon
demonstrated
to fascists?
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry. I was like, well, why can't everybody? Okay, yeah. Sorry, I don't know who this guy is. Okay.
One of the things that this show has demonstrated is that wormholes are not just ways of traveling, but if you could spontaneously create a wormhole in the middle of somebody's living room.
This is the Star Trek spoilers. The Star Trek reboot where they black hole the
basically.
Guys and they eat it. Okay, that's fair. Okay, so understood. So you don't give him the wormhole knowledge because he'll use it to wipe out planets. Why? Actually, I don't have a solution. I have to think about that. I was like, what do we do?
So he put a chip in John's brain to try and access the knowledge, which ended up manifesting with this like neural clone of him in John's brain, who is called Harvey. But at the end of last season, John destroyed Scorpius's base. He lost all his power, so he ended up tagging along, and is now
as you do.
He's like a neutered bad guy that just like hangs out.
He doesn't quite have a chip in his brain, but yeah, you got it.
That's really funny. I think it's funny that's like a semi-recurring trope. I think there's something just like kind of intriguing about like what if the person that you hate like couldn't really hurt anybody right now, and so they just hang out. Like that isn't like I can think of like 5 instances. I just think it's cute. I think it's funny. It's like it's not the exact same thing, but it's like Root in like season 3 of Person of Interest. Like, well, she's just kind of vibing. What do we do with her? Does she? It's a fun trope. I think
it's the hero's pet fascist seems to be a trope, and he's not actually neutered though. He just does. Okay. He just doesn't have. It doesn't serve his purpose to kill them
right now.
So he's decided to stick around and protect John so that the wormhole knowledge doesn't fall to the other fascists.
Right. That would be right. Why can't they just take each other out? Just do that. You know, the 2 fascists. And then
because that would be a big war.
We have a story that's arcing right now.
God, you just problems poking holes in my why don't we just fix it? What if it was fine? Okay, super cool. Yeah.
So yeah, that's where we are at the start of things. And they had locked Scorpius up, but in this episode we see that he cannot stay. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Great.
Okay. So a little clear as mud.
I will ask questions as they arise, and I will learn through context clues about the things you were saying. And it's going to be.
I'm enjoying the opportunity to not be the rookie on this particular show. So that's because that's the dynamic that we've set up.
Sara's happy to give you a new perspective, a new status.
And most of the guests that we've had on the show have also seen large chunks of it as well. So I'm just kind of sitting here really appreciating you, Sara. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm glad my ignorance can be entertaining and useful to your self-esteem.
Mine has been to others.
Well, shall we go to the summary?
To the summary.
I Shrink, Therefore I Am was written by Christopher Wheeler and directed by Rowan Woods. John is returning from a supply run with Naranti when he gets a subtle hint from Pilot that someone has set a trap for him on Moya. John instantly goes into John McClane mode. The ship has once again been boarded by bounty hunters, this time with full body armor and telepathy, and the crew have once again been taken captive. But someone has escaped. Exit Scorpius. With few options, John is forced to team up with Scorpius to start taking out henchmen. But it seems these particular baddies have a trick up their sleeves. A shrink ray. Each hostage gets miniaturized and then tucked inside the body armor of a henchman. So that's new. In a series of ambushes, John frees Eren, Chiana, Rigel, and Sukozu, and nabs some body armor to get a shrink ray. However, Scorpius is captured and taken to the head baddie, Axicor. It is a villain versus villain, and Axicor can't resist revealing his whole scheme to Scorpy. He's actually a Scaran in disguise. He came to capture Crichton for the Scaran Empire, and nabbing Scorpius would be a nice bonus. And with that, he makes snack-sized Scorpy and pops him in his own body armor. But as luck would have it, he put Scorpy in with Mini Dargo, who has managed to smuggle in a comms unit. Over the comm, Scorpy fills John in on Axicor's scheme, and John lets the henchman in on who Axicor really is, at which Axicor then disposes of the henchman. John and Axicor fight with a little assist from Mini Eren, and they alternately shrink and embiggen themselves until Big John squishes a Mini Axicor. Later, when everyone is their usual size, the crew makes some decisions. First, there's no point in keeping Scorpius locked up, as he can get out of a cage whenever he wants to. And second, with both Peacekeepers and Scarans after them, they need to get further away. And so they decide that they will enter tormented space.
I have so many questions.
So do I, actually.
Initial thoughts?
What's a Scaran?
Sorry?
Scaran are like big sort of dinosaur-headed fascist evil things that have telepathy.
And that's their like type of, that's their like what's the word, phylum, genus, species. That's their species.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the species is all fascists, or just like some of them, or is it like an innate, like
all the ones we've met so far have been fascist agents.
There's the Scaran Empire.
Scaran Empire. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And Scorpius happens to be half Scaran because they have a breeding program.
Half Scaran, half
Peacekeeper with Sebastian, which is what Aaron is, that look human.
They look human, but what else? They are human, like, but they look human, but instead they have like a is it like a Time Lord I have two hearts thing, or
kind of, yeah, like their internal physiology is different.
Yeah, they're a bunch of modifications, and they have a susceptibility to heat, which is why Scorpius, the Scarans, this is another reason they're enemies, is because Scarans make heat, and Sebastians, it makes them brain dead if they get too much heat. So that's why Scorpius is in the GIMP suit, is because that's a cooling suit, which isn't working so well, which is why he's smoking.
That's like in Dune, which is a movie I've seen now. They have cooling
yes
suits.
But the movie you haven't seen is Die Hard, which is what this episode is actually based on.
I like woefully. My roster of films is woefully small. I don't know. I just have not. There's like there's so many classics. People are like, oh my God, you haven't seen? I'm like, no, I have not. I'm sorry. I'm working on it. So I've been trying to fill that out. So
you've gotten this far.
Thank you.
Yeah. Josh, what's your initial thoughts on the episode?
I had a really good time with it. I loved the character work. I loved the way that Pilot let John know there was a problem by telling John everybody was doing something opposite of their personality. And I freaking loved the mech suit design. Like, that was so freaking cool, honestly.
Yeah.
Just kind of geeking out while I was watching it. I have thoughts about tormented space. I'm less enthusiastic about that, and it's continuing for me a season trend of just kind of flat writing choices that I've been griping about in previous videos. So I'll gripe about that when we get there. But
fair enough.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna ask Sara.
I was going to ask. You said they're doing something opposite of their personalities. Would you clue me into that as someone who doesn't know them?
Right at the beginning when John called in and Pilot was like, "Well, Aaron is doing poetry and Dargo is cooking and Rigel's not hungry." Like, all of those things are not what those people would be doing. Aaron,
yeah. If you could give me like a quick primer on like their general like
demeanor,
yeah. If you would.
Right. Rigel is a tiny little hedonist.
With 3 stomachs.
That's
good. He's a deposed emperor of his people.
That'll do it.
As you do. Aaron is she defected from the Peacekeepers and has slowly been learning learning things like compassion and empathy.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, right. And unlearning things like internalized shame and regimented fascism. Dargo, with the tongue, he's captain of the ship, which they just elected him captain last episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
2 episodes ago.
2 episodes ago. So he's brand new captain of the ship. And he is from a race of warriors, but he's also a big old softy. He's Sara's favorite himbo.
Okay.
Who vowed he would never be captured again.
And gets captured every other episode. Chiana, the gray girl that goes blind at one point in the episode, she is a brat. Like, just a tiny little impulsive brat.
Her deal? How did she get on the ship?
She belongs to another kind of fascist culture.
A lot of fascists out in space, apparently.
They're the particular. They're like the Christo-fascists. They're the conformity at all costs things, and she was a nonconformist, so she was being chased down to have her brain reprogrammed, which is what they do to anyone who doesn't conform or anyone they feel like it that they come across.
Well, that's not very nice.
It is not.
It's not, no.
Especially the way they do it.
Yeah. She got free of her captors and joined the crew, and is kind of like she's a brat with a heart of gold.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is the brat without the heart of gold, which is Sikosu.
She was the one with the hair.
Yeah, she's a kind of know-it-all, annoying little shit.
Does she have any redeeming qualities?
So far, her willingness to help the crew out.
Okay.
And she's very thirsty for Scorpius. That's not a redeeming quality, it's just entertaining.
Okay.
And then there's Naranti, the drug dealer, crazy granny. Who
just when I was starting to come around to her.
Isn't much part of this episode, except for the very beginning.
And then Pilot, the big guy with the big head, he is in a symbiotic relationship with the living ship that they're on.
Oh, how does that work?
The
ship is called Moya.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, look at you. Pilot helps manage and regulate Moya's mechanical systems and helps to guide Moya.
And make it possible for people to live in her. Yeah.
Moya is on an intelligence level that's greater, that's shown to be like whale and above. Like she's capable of making her own decisions whenever, and a few times has like gone against the wishes of the crew. But both her and Pilot have a very deeply ingrained desire of service. Like it's what they're there for. It's what they find joy in, is nurturing and taking care of their crew.
Okay. Love.
How did I do, Sarah? I feel like that was like me passing a test.
I think you did great. Yeah, those are our folks. The sort of setup of bounty hunters have caught some portion of the crew in some way has been done multiple times, but they do find a new way of doing it this time, which is very Die Hard influenced. And I really enjoy a lot of this episode, but I also kind of feel like there's bits that sort of like where there could have been more.
In what sense?
Like each of these ideas, like I love John and Scorpius having to work together. It's wonderful, it's tense, and it's, like it's always fun to have like a the Buffy and Spike and the thing, and like the two people who hate each other having to work together. But that only happens, for a little while, and I do enjoy the sort of die-hardy thing of crawling around the ship and then making traps and stuff. And I also enjoy the whole idea of shrinking all the crew and everything. But it feels like when you do the Honey I Shrunk the Kids, like the what makes that film so great. I don't know if either of you saw that, because that was very much my childhood.
That film is largely responsible for an insect phobia that I carried for a long time.
Oh, were you scared of Auntie?
When they're the size of semis, yeah.
It's a classic kids film, Sarah, where like Rick Moranis is an inventor who has a shrink ray, and his kids all accidentally get shrunk.
I mean, I wondered if that might be the case from Honey I Shrunk the Kids. Yeah.
sort of it's ingrained in the title there. Yeah.
And the charm of it is that because they become tiny, like just the voyage of getting across the backyard becomes this huge action adventure movie because they have to engage with normal sized things that are now gigantic, like the big semi-sized ant. And I like when they shrink, I would love for them to be doing more of that when they get shrunk, of like dealing with the normal size of Moya. And we have a little moment of that with Aaron on the DRD, but it kind of feels like the idea of shrinking has so much potential that they didn't really do all that much with. Even though it's a good episode, there a lot of these ideas. Yeah, I kind of feel like there's some stuff left on the table.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Even though I do enjoy it, so I do enjoy myself. Yeah.
One of the things that I've talked a lot about on this podcast is having grown up, very much indoctrinated in Star Trek, Star Wars, being a sci-fi nerd prior to Farscape. There are a lot of very common sci-fi tropes that this show does a really great job of subverting. And
just
the shrinking is, in my opinion, is one of them. Like it has such an expected plot formula that goes along with it that this episode does not do. And to me, that's very Farscape.
What's the expected plot formula? I'm not sure.
Well, I think it is what Sara mentioned. I think it is the like we have been shrunk and now we must contend with the rest of the regular world in our shrunken state. Star Trek even did a shrinking episode. But they were in like a little ship that also got shrunk, and so the little ship is like zipping around, and they use the nose of the ship to push the buttons on the computer. And so that Farscape didn't do that, to me, is very consistent with they'll telegraph or they'll wave at some kind of very common sci-fi trope or sci-fi plot, and then go a very different direction in a way that I usually find pretty entertaining. And I think what they did with the shrinking this episode was used it as an opportunity to pair up different characters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I feel like they telegraphed in the title. I shrink, therefore I am, because I like obviously Descartes, but also it felt like a play on like head shrink, like psychologist or something like that. So if they could pair up different characters who don't usually get to interact, then we get some fun character work, just because they're all stuck in cups.
Yeah. I think it's just I particularly like the trope of the and I'm like, but I want them to do some fun, But anyway, we have the episode we have, and it is good. It is fun. So where should we start digging in? Josh, how did you like the Scorpius and John of it all?
Oh, I had a blast with it. Very, very much like Sara was saying. Like I like seeing those, two characters who hate each other have to interact and have to do things together. It's a dynamic that feels very different still, thankfully, from earlier in the show when they did it with John and Crace. Because Scorpius is much more of a pragmatist than Crace ever was.
Mm-hmm.
Crace is a previous big bad who got his own little redemption arc. And Crace was always very selfishly motivated. Like he was always out for himself, even in his redemption. Scorpius is very pragmatic. He's very much like, no, yeah, I eventually someday want to dissect your skull. So because I want to do that someday, I'm going to do everything I can to protect you.
I mean,
like it's hard not to trust that kind of honesty,
Well, yeah, just from a pragmatic standpoint, it's like, well, yeah, you have no reason, you have no cause to, not help me right now. Like it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
But also, you've previously dissected my brain, so
only twice.
So he tried to dissect the brain and was unsuccessful in getting what he wanted.
Basically.
Yeah. Well, no, he did get the wormhole information. It's just they then blew up his base, so he lost it all.
Oh, yeah, that was the second time he dissected his brain. God, this show's weird.
He's had his brain dissected a couple times. I feel like he's doing pretty okay. He feels pretty resilient. Oh, there was a thing at the beginning where
ish.
What?
Ish. he's always sort of this side of one side or the other of sanity, kind of holding on to the edge.
I was gonna say there was a bit at the beginning where he's like having like flashes of making out with Aaron, and it's and he's like, God, give me more of the dose or something.
Right. Yes. So Moranti has given him drugs. This is how we ended the last episode. So I'll get Josh's thoughts on this. He is madly in love with Aaron, but they've had this very, very complicated relationship, and he's currently in a sort of like, I don't trust you phase for reasonable reasons.
He doesn't trust her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he trusts her with his life, but not his heart, is what he said.
I see. Interesting.
Complicated place to be.
Yes, it's rather complicated when you got double. He got doubled, and then she and his double had a relationship because they were
not with the double.
And then the double died. So she was mourning.
And so it's sad that she liked his double, even though
no, he wasn't mad at her. But she was like, I have to leave because I'm mourning. And when she came back, she was pregnant, but and it was just a lot. It was just the face,
yes,
too much for him. And he's like, yeah. And I am annoyed with him for like being sort of and then he was saying to Granny that he felt like this was a weakness or something. And she said, well, here I have a little thing, a little bug you can sniff, because with her the drugs are always sniffed for some reason. And it will get rid of the pain, and you'll feel nothing for things. So now the guy who has had his brain messed with so many times, lost his mind a couple times, has decided that drugs are the way to go.
So he's taking drugs not to like forget her, but just to like not feel pain
or love.
So
it removes your ability to feel love.
So this is the first episode where we've seen it in action, and so far, my take is so far it doesn't seem to be working very well.
She said, you sniff it and you'll feel nothing.
Yeah, the episode doesn't bear that out in evidence.
Yeah, it's kind of like, we don't know how the mechanics of that work.
Because he's not going numb. He's not zombieing out or anything like that. He's, he looks high, but he doesn't look emotionally detached or anything like that. So and I've been annoyed with the character of Naranti / Granny pretty much since she got here.
Okay.
And just was starting to be okay with her. Just was starting to get on board with her. And then she goes and pulls this shit.
She says, take the drugs that'll make you feel love.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm with you.
And it annoys me because people keep listening to her.
Why do you think they do?
Because they're fictional characters and it makes good drama.
Within the story, why do you think they do? Unless there isn't a good reason.
I think the reason is John is being dumb because of emotion. Anymore. There will be more, some insight into more later, but at the moment it just appears to be done as being dumb. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts yet?
No, yeah. I mean, he's pretty upfront with why he's listening to her. He's like, it hurts.
Yeah.
I can't believe I feel like this again. I can't believe I'm in this position again. Because they've willed, they won't, they'd so much over this show.
Love a will they won't they.
This has been the crowner of all of the will they won't theys that I've seen.
I think will they won't theys can be enjoyable to a point. I think at a certain, I've seen enough where it just feels like they're milking the tension for the sake of it, and it just makes people act in ways that are either out of character, unrealistic, or just frustrating. And it's like, okay, you know what I mean? It's like just to prolong, like, oh, another misunderstanding. It's like, do it or don't, do it or don't. Oh, at a certain point, it's like, will they or won't they? Like pick one. It's fine, but like let's. And it's very common. I my main thoughts go to like sitcoms where it feels like people don't trust you to get interested in a dynamic, especially in a romantic dynamic, if it's not like dangled like, oh well, but maybe they don't, but maybe there is a it's like, you know, as though like there can't be something interesting in a relationship that is happening, but that also has, you know, things to, you know, work on. So I can't speak to this because I haven't seen it, but like just trope wise, and like I think you know, the will they won't they can very quickly get tiring.
See, I'm often there with you, but in John and Aaron's case, it is almost always because of some internal character stuff, like her, like one or the other of them's trauma, and her not like she was trained. If she comes from a world that doesn't do that, you know, they've banned romance, so like
because of the fascism, they banned romance.
Yeah, you can have they think of sex as fluid release, but they're not supposed to have emotional connection.
Thanks for putting it in the most diplomatic way possible. Sure.
They call it recreating or fluid release.
Awesome. Okay.
The standards, the show is an Australian production, and the standards and practices are hilariously different from America.
It is an incredibly horny show.
I got the text title.
Yeah, so most of the will they won't they is about sort of her learning as effectively as someone who's been the victim of child abuse, to be indoctrinated in the no love world, learning how to possibly love.
Sorry,
and be like, loved.
Oh, just like Shira. Oh
I've been waiting for you to say that. I have been waiting for you to bring up Catra.
Stories are like other stories. Anyway, have you seen that meme that's like guy who's only seen Boss Baby? Getting some major Boss Baby vibes from this. Because I've actually seen multiple other shows, but like guy who's only seen Shira, guy who's seen Shira a bunch. Getting some real Shira vibes from this.
Yeah. Anyway,
the only thing I'm commenting on is people raised in a militaristic, loveless environment learning to love. That's it.
This is I think you would really enjoy, Aaron. And John is kind of they're so buy for buy, because John is absolutely the
best.
He's absolutely the labrador
baby.
He's the golden retriever boyfriend, except he's the golden retriever that's been kicked a bunch and had his head dissected. So
it's too bad.
No, so I also don't mind the will they or won't they in this show very much.
Love that.
It's kind of amazing that they've pulled it off, because several times they actually have. It's been will they won't they did, and will they won't they,
and they're
again.
like, never mind, we don't work, or never mind,
no, literally
slept with my clone. So
no, literally,
no, like
yes,
we worked, but then you died, and you're the other you.
They've each died a couple of times. It's a whole thing.
Who hasn't at this point? What are you gonna do?
At this point, I think John is being an idiot, but also it's the idiocy born out of trauma and pain that's sort of understandable of, he's taking drugs to numb his feelings. Yeah, like it's one of those things, I think, when a character can do something stupid, but you can understand it from when it's character stupid.
As opposed to writer stupid?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fair.
Because why would you listen to the...
That's what's annoying me, is that they keep listening to this crazy lady.
Without a ground, you think a grounded narrative reason to, is what
they met this character because she just showed up on the ship. Cool. And everybody assumed that someone else had invited her to join them.
And nobody was like, hey, you don't know this. No? Oh, how about Did you invite? Nobody
no,
had.
literally for episodes. It was like that.
But they're so trauma bonded that they're like, well, I guess she's here. I guess she's part of the team.
So, like, why anybody's taking her advice is baffling to me.
Do we, the audience, know why she appeared on the ship, or is that like supposed to be something we're gonna be told?
She was being held captive on the base that they blew up, and she felt she owed them, so she decided to stick around and take care of them.
And
but her way,
anti-love snort drugs.
Well, her first response was to use drugs to give him therapy against his will.
Like, she literally walked up to him and blew powder into his face.
Okay.
Exactly.
Oh my God. That's so Amy to Willow in Buffy season 6. Look, connections everywhere.
There we go.
We're going to do drugs whether you want to or not.
There we go. This is why Sara invited you.
I'm doing it. I'm connecting everything.
Yeah.
Season 6.
I think most of our watchers have watched all of Buffy, because even if they haven't, then they have been definitely spoiled on it, because we've
spoiled them a long time ago in that shit.
Yeah. So yeah, and yeah, it is just so chaotic and trauma bonded that they just don't seem to be able to turn anyone away.
That's good. That's healthy, I think. I think a mark of emotional health is not ever being able to say no to anyone. I think we can all agree.
Yeah, totally boundary free. Absolutely.
You should just not like be so incapable and uncomfortable with ever saying no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just let your enemy who has dissected your brain twice stick around.
What's the
Take
worst?
Drugs from the lady who's given you drugs against your will multiple times.
What's the worst that can happen? I don't know. I haven't seen the show. What is the worst? I don't know.
That's honestly the argument. Like, for all of these characters, they have already experienced the worst that can happen from these people, and so they're like, "Well, I guess it can't get much worse than that."
That's a compelling line of reasoning, you know. I mean that unironically. I'm like, okay, well, let's see. I suppose.
Yeah, we already know.
It's basically the USS Fuck It. Although he did refer to it as the USS Butt Crack at one point, but
pardon, I missed that. I'm so sorry.
His joke at one point was to call the ship the USS Butt Crack, but it's like, this is the ship where everything goes wrong, but we accept everybody anyway.
That's good.
Yeah. See, this is why it's an entertaining show, because it is so weird, but also like the rule that the writers went with is that everything has consequences.
As it should. Yeah. Be weird if like there's, am I allowed to say bad words on this podcast?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
I was going to say, I just think that's a easy low bar of shitty writing is when there's something introduced and there's not consequences, right? Like when you want to play, you want to introduce your new toys and be like, we did something, but then you don't want to deal with the narrative consequences for your characters, right? I think that's a very easy, when you watch something and that feels bad, that feels frustrating. You're like, right? It's irritating. You're like, okay, so don't do that if you're not ready to reckon with, okay, what would happen then? So I like that you said that everything has consequences. I think that's heartening thing to hear.
Like a lot of the writers were Star Trek writers, frustrated with the episodic nature, and they went, what if everything had consequences? So they like real emotional consequences. So
this is interesting to me, because I also haven't seen I've seen like one season of Star Trek because I watched it with my friend, and I need to watch shows. Okay, I'm watching Severance. Anyway, you didn't ask. That's not the point. So Star Trek. So they took issue, because I know Star Trek is beloved, but they took issue with it being too episodic. With like, oh, things happen in this self-contained episode, and then they're like not brought up again. Like that's.
At the time,
because I know that Star Trek is beloved, but would you say that's an issue? Not to talk about.
It's an issue depending on it. It's an issue of the time period. Like DS9 does go into consequences, but the original series really doesn't, and the Next Generation rarely does. Yeah. The modern iteration does. Things do have more consequences, and then there's Voyager, which annoys the fuck out of a lot of people, because even though there was a lot of potential, they were just so on the hard reset at the end of every episode.
So Farscape was like, there's some intention was intended as an antidote to a sci-fi show that is too episodic, that doesn't reckon with consequences. Like, it was a deliberate thing of like, we're going to make sure that even things in self-contained episodes like have continuity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is also why I've been able to track a lot of their like subverting sci-fi tropes, because...
Can you give me an example of like a thing that you would, maybe there was continuity that you weren't expecting? Or like,
thinking all the way back to the first season, one of the first things about the show that really endeared me to it is they begin the show, all of the characters, most of the characters that we've still got, begin the show as prisoners on this ship, which was a prison ship. They escape, they free themselves, liberate themselves, and they spend the first I want to say like 5 or 6 episodes of the show not just dealing with, now we're on the run, but dealing with their own psychological scars from having been held captive for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, that has been a through line for all of these characters the entire show, but that they actually like took time to dig into it with each one of them really impressed me early on.
that sounds like it would. Yeah.
Because the show has a very like third person limited perspective. Each character is their own unreliable narrator.
Hey, Josh, you're using so many storytelling words, and it's incredible. I'm trying to follow along. Third person, yes. Oh my God, I'm joking. I know what third person means.
I feel empowered to do so because of the high quality of your channel, Zar.
Stop that. I was going to say, I hope you feel empowered because of my complete lack of knowledge of the source material here. And I'm just asking questions to clarify and validate.
I'm enjoying, like I said, I'm enjoying not being the rookie this time.
I'm happy to help.
I think this is a fun dynamic because, to be honest, while I enjoy the episode, I don't have a huge amount to say about it because we did, we have gone over a lot of this ground before. It's fun to do it in new ways, but it doesn't leave me, from a critical perspective, a huge amount to talk about. So it's kind of fun to be doing a bit of a thing with you introducing a totally new person in.
I like to, yeah. I mean, it's. I think about if I were ever to introduce my friends to a show, that I'm like, oh, you have to like, and I had not one shot, but you know what I mean? I'm like, okay, I'm going to show you this episode. You don't need to know anything. Just, just be along for the ride. Like, I think it's an interesting thing to think about of like, how would that come up? Like putting yourself in their shoes and be like, okay, how would this come across? What would the things that seem maybe obvious to me or like that wouldn't be to a new person, like how like in what way can it be still enjoyed? I don't know. I think it's an interesting thing. Like I think about that. I'm like, I think it's a tricky thing to do. I don't know. I'm like, literally, this is just me clearly thinking out loud. I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like in any of my shows, if there's like one that I'm like, you could just.
And Candy.
I don't know.
I think if you were going to drop someone in Buffy, I think it would be Band Candy for me.
That's fair. Yeah, I think there's something that you could do. Yeah, I think definitely I would say the earlier seasons, because I think so much of the drama builds on the characters' relationship, obviously. And so I think even if it were like, a self-contained episode, even like Jesus Christ, like Tabula Rasa, like everybody loses their memories, but so much of the drama is banking on you knowing who these people are. So I think it would have to be like an earlier. Anyway, we're not talking about Buffy, but anyway.
and this wouldn't be my first choice of an episode to drop someone in for Farscape. I think it might be Crackers Don't Matter. I don't know. Folks in the comments, tell us what episode you would choose to show someone out of the blue as their first episode of Farscape.
I don't know. I think this one was fine, but I wish it left me wishing that I understood more what was going on, because I was just like, like, wait, what?
I mean, in order to do that, all you have to do is go back and watch the first 3 seasons.
Well, yes, I thank you. Yeah.
And also Die Hard.
The best remedy.
Watch the 2 plot lines that converge into 3 plot lines. Like,
yeah, I mean, I do think Aaron is your kind of girl character because you like.
Also, I'll be honest, like I liked the guy. Like he seemed, I don't know, he seemed like a type of guy character that I would also be endeared to.
He's
yes,
fun.
he is fun.
In my
He's
limited
endearing.
exposure, I love guys who are just kind of pathetic a little bit, you know. I think it's just very easy to like.
You love John.
I love a woman who's learning empathy for the first time. Good for her. Work on it, yeah.
They do make an excellent pair, but we don't get a huge amount of them in this one. Although I do love Mini Aaron riding the DRD.
I think that probably is the answer to the question of why they didn't go full shrink plot, because TV budget is TV budget.
Yeah.
I did really enjoy the like kind of proto Ant-Man fight that John and Scarn had.
Yes.
So, that's actually so true.
Or the shrinking and the growing real quick like that. Yeah. That was pretty fun.
Yeah.
And then just also in general, I was just geeking out about that armor costume the whole time.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. So what did you think of our reintroduction of Scarens with the new face?
This is like the fourth or fifth like Scaran makeup that I've gotten to see on this show so far. And might be my least favorite. Like this guy just looked like a pimple that needed to be popped. I like the bestial dinosaur kind of a look so far that has come a couple of times earlier. I find it fascinating that the Scarens and the Peacekeepers seem to have the same kinds of fears about each other.
Mm.
Say again?
Which is to say?
They each think that the other one is this unstoppable menace that has to be contained.
Yeah, that tracks.
While they are doing their own Imperial conquering the galaxy shit.
I mean, neither of them are wrong.
Yeah, they're both evil. You're right. But speaking of things that we've done before, I am going to do my best to keep an open mind about whatever the hell tormented space is. But haven't we already been in the Uncharted Territories this whole time, which are supposed to be
remarkably charted? Yes.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the place that nobody else is going to go, and it's the perfect place to hide from the Peacekeepers. No, now we need to go to tormented space, which is the place where nobody goes, and it's the perfect place to hide from the Peacekeepers.
Dun dun dun.
Like that, there have been a couple.
I'm gonna. This is for you, Josh, because you talked about third person. What was it? Third person. I'm not omniscient. Third person. What? What was the word you said?
Third person limited.
Third person limited. I'm making a joke out of something that doesn't need it. But this is the have you heard like power creep, power crawl? This is like this is like stakes. I'm sure there's like an actual better term for it, but it's like it's been used before, but like stakes crawl creep. We're like, oh no, this is the biggest one. No, this is the big, and it's like everything just, and it's like, okay,
Yeah, and Farscape doesn't usually do that, except with the whole Uncharted Territories, tormented space.
But this is the super Uncharted Territory.
Mm-hmm. And like Erin's like super dramatic sit down in the middle of the hallway, but then her dialogue is like, yeah, we don't know what we're going to find in there. Like, clearly you know something.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of wormholes. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Worms in holes.
Like, how long have we been this close to tormented space with its lots and lots of wormholes when we've been struggling to find wormholes?
Yeah.
So, but then this is me griping about a show that went off the air in 2002. But
I mean, is that not the whole thing that you're doing? Who cares if it went off the air in 2002?
At least it's not a like random beam to space.
But
this is the super important beam to space.
I thought you were going to say at least it's not Luxon Hyper Rage.
Well, yes, there's that.
which has been the bane of my existence on this show.
It's happened twice.
There was a first season episode that began. It seemed like it began in medias res, like in the middle of the story, but then that story didn't actually matter. And it was like, what's going on with Dargo? He's in the middle of Luxon Hyper Rage. What? And that was the story. And there was the whole, like, it was just this excuse to get them all off the ship.
That's really funny, actually. Okay.
And It is something that has stuck in my craw ever since.
No, that's funny. No, and I think having just a random bone to pick with something I think that's fair and that's funny of you.
I've really been enjoying the show. I hope everybody knows I've really enjoyed the show.
So I think enjoying a show and then having like little gripes and nitpicking, but like I don't know. I think if you didn't, you know what I mean? Like if I simply don't like something, I'm not going to talk about it. If I love something and then I'm like, I know you can do better, or like like there's a criticism that comes from like I like you,
I know what you're capable of, and it's better than this.
Yeah.
And nobody had ever mentioned Lux and Hyper Rage before that episode. It was not remotely foreshadowed in any way at all.
That's so funny. That's actually really the more I think about that, that's so fucking funny. And then like just also like pulling out like words, like the techno babble. I'm like, sure, yeah, he's in Hyper Rage. Okay.
There will be an episode coming up, which will definitely be one of those. I know what you're capable of, and it's better than this. But we will get there when we get there.
We'll get there.
So, we do have some fun pairings up in this episode, and one of my favorite scenes, is with Sikozu and Rigel. It's the scene that I always remember from this episode when she's just like, "This is not scientifically possible, so it's not happening."
And he's like, "I know a thrilling fact when it slaps me in the face."
Yeah, I love that. I don't know either. I don't know what the fuck's going on. I'm old enough and wise enough to know that sometimes I don't know shit. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, I wish more people could just be like, I don't know.
I love saying I don't know.
Yeah.
I have so many times in this. I'm like, yeah, I don't know who that is. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Like,
same.
I'm not going to assume that I know how the world works, and if something doesn't appear to make sense to me, that means it doesn't. That it can't be happening. Admittedly, my younger self, one of the reasons why I kind of hate Sikozu is because in some ways she reminds me of my 20-year-old self.
Oh, no.
And I might have been like, but this doesn't make sense. Like, yeah, and it's happening anyway.
You connect to that piece of this doesn't make sense, so I'm gonna whatever.
I connect to the know-it-all idiot with no experience of the world. I remember being that.
I think we can all,
we've all had that stage of life.
I also connect to the tired old person who's just like, yeah, none of us know what the fuck is happening. We just all accept that it is happening because look, it's a thrilling fact.
Yeah.
We are small. Yeah.
Yeah. We are small and we do appear to be breathing.
Someone might even say seeing is believing.
Some might.
I know. But should some? Yeah.
Do I understand how my friends are born a different gender than their body appears? No. But it's real. And I love my friends. And I don't need to know what to have a scientific understanding of the complete mechanics.
Yeah.
It just is. And I just go, hey, the world is neat and cool, and there are more things on heaven and earth than are dreamt of in our philosophy.
Yeah, and it's like you could always I think that curiosity is wonderful. I think the pursuit of always wanting to understand how and why things work, I think is wonderful. And I think also to some extent, it's like, especially when you talk about we're kind of getting off track, but the inner workings of human beings. Why are all of us wired in certain nuanced ways that we are? You could try to find the environmental and genetic equation, and sometimes just because there's a vast array of ways to that all these things happen, and then they create a what we call a person. You know what I mean? I'm like, you know what I mean? Part of the mystery is part of the wonder, I think, to a point. It's like, cause, and yeah,
it's happening. So I'm going to,
it is what it is, not everything needs to, And sometimes the more important thing is that it is happening, right? It doesn't matter how and why, but also what's more, pressing is it is. So let's reckon with the fact that it is.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that is annoying me currently about the state of the world is how obsessed people are with figuring out how he won.
Are we doing this?
Who is to blame for the state of things? And it's like
we do get pretty political on this podcast sometimes.
Yeah.
No, you're so fine. I'm just like it's just like constantly in my head. I'll just okay.
But I'm just bringing it up as a
you're good. Yeah,
I will never understand how the fuck it happened. I just know it is happening, and therefore we have to do something about it.
That's actually a good comparison. Well, I think both are true. I think because I don't want to get too sidetracked. I think it is important to understand how and why, because that is how you, I don't even know what the word is. That's how you navigate it. That's how you learn individually and collectively, is that like, it's both like it is. And that's like the more important thing. But I think you also have to understand how and why these things happen on an individual and on a collective level, because or else, whatever, then like things happen again. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like and unfortunately, it's like, also it's like, there's a difference between like understanding something emotionally and intellectually. It's like intellectually, like, I know how this happened. Of course I do. Both from like a technical point of view, from an emotional point of view, like, I don't think it's hard to understand why, certain people feel the way they feel. But there's also then the emotional sense where like there's this sense of like, it's incomprehensible. Like how could you, right, as a human being, you know what I mean? But it's like, so it's like I get it, and also of course you don't. We're gonna,
yes. But yeah, it's the getting stuck as I don't know. I can't make sense of this, so I must stay here and make sense of it before I can do anything else.
The television show, yes. The television show is completely divorced from reality and never relates to real human sociological.
Yes, why should we talk about fascism in the show that is all about fighting fascism?
Because fiction and reality are neatly delineated and exist in two separate spheres and have nothing to do with each other.
Can't possibly reference each other.
We do frequently talk about fascism in both reality and the fiction, but yes. Yeah, I like the thing I come back to is just I really love that that moment of like, okay, the thing doesn't make sense to you. That doesn't mean it's not happening.
Yep.
And
is a good kernel of conversational wisdom or whatever. I think I like that. Yeah.
And it coming from Rigel, who is generally despicable. You get a little bit of character growth for a given value of Rigel, but he is our total self-serving.
Is he the deposed leader?
He is. You remembered something.
Oh my God, I have so many facts in my brain.
I really liked Rigel this episode also. Yes to everything that both of you just said. I really like Rigel this episode also. And earlier in the episode when the one dude is like, who does John Crichton care most about? And he goes, why, me, of course. Clearly in a mode of protecting Aaron. And then also real kind of the way he puts Sikozu in her place before they even have that existential conversation where she's like, hey, Hynerian. And he goes, my name is Rigel the 16th. You may call me Dominar. Rigel was on point this episode. I feel like also that conversation between the two of them in the cup, where she's like, how could this possibly be happening? Is just the writers like literally talking straight at the audience and being like, just go with it. Like, just go with it.
Also, because like in like sci-fi, fantasy, whatever, to a certain point, it's like that you can explain things technically, and to a different point, it's like it's because it's fiction, it's because it's magic. It's like how do the vampires have sex? Like because the blood. I'm like, how are they walking? How are they talking? How like because at a certain point, the answer is because it's magic. Like you're gonna hit a dead end at some point because like we made it up. This doesn't happen in real life, so you can give all the technical here, but like something's gonna have to not work because this doesn't work in real life. It's like, because of the magic, at a point, and it's like, let's move on from that.
And sometimes you need somebody who's good at doing the Doctor Who technobabble, blah, 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 reverse the polarity thing, and say something that vaguely sounds it, and you just go, okay. Does it actually have to make sense? No. But sometimes but in this case, like, we don't really, it's just not necessary for the story, and, nobody cares.
I think David Tennant was probably the best at that. He could mumble his way through technobabble at a light speed better than any of the rest of them.
And it just sounds like poetry.
And you have to say it convincingly, and there was a charm to it that you're just like, whatever you say, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not listening to your words. I'm looking at your hair and trying to emulate it. and then realize that kind of hair is not sustainable for like a normal human being, because it is hair that takes a lot of effort and kind of looks ridiculous. Not that I'm speaking from experience.
I like his fashion.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. He's David Tennant is David Tennant. There's no one quite like him. So what else do we have about this episode? What do you got, Josh?
I think that about covers it. I did have a fun ride all the way through. I really enjoyed myself.
Yeah, I did as well. Like you said, there's ways in which I kind of want to play more with the trope of the shrink ray and everything.
Right. No.
But also, yeah, this is a TV budget, so yeah. And I really enjoy John and Scorpius sneaking through the ship, setting traps. But I also enjoy the villain off. The villain versus villain.
That's always good. I always enjoy it as a trope, because then it sort of puts you, I don't know, like in this position where, like, first of all, then you go, okay, which villain am I more affectionate to, right? That's like the devil, if you will. And also it like takes a little bit of the stress pressure off, as you're like, okay, like the people I like for the most, but they're fine. Okay, like let's just see what happens. You know what I mean? Like it's just very entertaining, and it's just like it cracks up open so many interesting possibilities. Because you're, I don't know, I like it a lot. I'm not, that wasn't very articulate, but I like it a lot. I think it's really fun.
Well, I think that's about it for this episode. Unless you don't not know. No, there's really no themey stuff. So are you ready to hear the title of the next episode?
Lay it on me.
The Prefect Murder. The Prefect?
Okay.
Do you have any predictions?
It's going to be a grammar-based crime.
Okay. Yeah, it's not really a title that lends itself to anything beyond the possibility of a crime. So we'll be joined by Adnan for that one.
Cool.
So there is a little warning that there is a bit of insect and body stuff, if for those who are sensitive about insects and body horror-y stuff to be aware of. It's not there have been worse.
I think one of the best trigger warnings that you ever gave, because it was so wildly undersold the experience, was in the episode where they pulled their eyeballs out of their heads while they were like still conscious and interacting. And the trigger warning you gave was there's a little bit of body horror.
That's really funny.
I didn't say a little. I said there is. I'm pretty sure I said there's body horror involving eye stuff.
Yeah, eye stuff is like a hard no. Like that is it's a very like eye stuff, tongue, like anything involving like the face. Like very quickly, I'm like,
this was extremely well done special effects.
Yeah, I'm good. That's good.
Well, it was pretty obviously a Muppet, so I think it's okay. But it
wasn't pretty obviously what it was really well done special effects.
And even if things look like quote unquote obviously fake, still I think like the concept and
the concept of that is freaky as hell.
The concept and the mental association is still like.
There's no. I don't remember there being any eye stuff in this one, but there is some bug stuff.
I mean, I'm just I'm giving you shit.
Yeah, which is your job.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay then. What is your favorite part of this episode?
Sorry?
Oh, geez. I liked the little Ant-Man fight. That was fun. With the quickly getting small and big with the gauntlets on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the squish.
Oh yeah, it was just like a
The
pile of
Gaknar squish.
yeah.
Yeah.
Me when I turn into paint. Yeah.
That's something they also do on the show a lot. Is they make it gross.
Yeah, it was very squishy. Yeah.
I think my favorite part was probably probably how casually Scorpius took that shot to the chest after he tried to shoot the gun, and he was like, "Oh, perfect! It doesn't work." And they just
Yeah, yes, this is some
Like that
excellent
cracked me
video,
up.
physical comedy. Yeah. Well, I think we've already talked about my favorite part of the whole "well, it is happening" speech, but I'll go with another little favorite part, which is you're smoking. You know that's not good for you. When his head is just like
yes.
especially as it's a callback to them smoking in my head. So yeah, thank you, Sara, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for the pressure in being on a podcast for a show I haven't seen. I was like, okay, I gotta find something interesting to contribute if I am more confused than not. So thank you for including me. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for welcoming me to your home, your digital
our madness.
Thank you.
And do you want to tell the folks about your platform and what you do and where to find you?
Yeah, like I said, so I run the channel 5x5 Takes. I'm hoping to do a little aesthetic rebrand soon. I like talking about TV and film, and every time I say it, but I really mean it, I'm gonna get so good at making like a regular upload schedule and not over censoring and just like throwing stuff on there. But yeah, I like talking about stories. So
yeah, I'll figure that out about 5 minutes after you do. And particularly, I would recommend folks who like She-Ra should check out your channel, as well as Buffy lovers. And your excellent recent one of looking at Glinda from Wicked. I really loved that one.
I love Wicked so much. I've seen it too many times, and I think this is just a very quick plug. Whatever. Not everything should come from. Most things should come from love and passion, but they can also come from being frustrated that you're seeing a certain inclination of discourse when people discuss certain stories on the internet. And I think that was me reacting to or processing the kind of absolutist black and white reactions to Wicked. I think especially when people had only seen part one. And I think that is more often than not the most enriching way to engage with a story, is that most of the time things are kind of a lot of things. So, and I really like Linda, and she's become a fascination of mine in the last couple of years. She was a sleeper hit, to be honest.
And the whole point of Wicked is sort of dissecting the whole point. Black and white thinking.
Mm-hmm.
This is the thing about splitting it into two parts is although that gives us plenty of time, it means people are they'll only have
exactly they're experiencing something that was intended to be you see this entire story within the course of an evening. To I'm seeing half the story. If I'm waiting patiently for each half, I'm seeing half the story and then seeing the other half a year later, which is different. Like it's admittedly different, and that's okay. But it does cause a little bit of different conversation.
Yeah, we recorded a discussion of Wicked, Ren and Danny and I, that was going to be for the patrons, but then I think I've lost the file.
Oh,
so, I mean, if I find the file, I will get that up for patron supporters. But sorry. If I lost it, then we may have to do another discussion of Wicked. Because I too really loved it, and and I really loved your video about it.
I appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
And where can folks?
5x5 Takes. Yeah, I basically don't really use any other social media for it. The channel is 5x5 Takes. I think it's spelled out with letters and not numbers.
Okay, and there will be a link to it in the doobly.
Sure. Yeah.
And Josh, where can folks find you?
You can find me riding inside of the cup that you keep very close to your heart, attached to the armor that you have to wear so that you don't
That makes sense.
fall out all over the floor.
That's good.
And also on Instagram at Josh Gosdin. I just hang out over there, guys, and come hang out with me. A few of you guys have started following me over there, and I really appreciate it.
Instagram.
And I'm Sara Ezzat. You can find me at the Fat Culture Critic videos on YouTube. I'm also on Blue Sky, no longer on Twitter. And you can also follow the podcast. You can also follow the podcast on Blue Sky and at Patreon if you want to support us. You can see Josh and I. Well, Josh and Ren and I watched the last episode, John Quixote, and particularly it was Josh's first time. It's always John's first time going through a story.
It's always John's first time.
A lot of fun. So that is available for patrons. If you want to support us there, we really appreciate it. And you can leave comments on the video or email us or join our Discord. We have a link to that as well. And I'm not going to read any comments this time. We'll save that for till there's a few to react to together, and we'll just So we will be back in 2 weeks with our friend Adnan to discuss a prefect murder. And once again, Sara, thank you for joining us. And have we convinced you to give Farscape a go?
I don't need to be convinced. I just need to have the attention span to start new shows. I could not tell you it's what the impetus is, but right now the show I'm watching is the weekly airing Severance, and that's kind of it. But I of course.
I don't know. I'm not watching a huge number of new programs either. It's just the bandwidth is not bandwidth.
I do like having the weekly release. That is nice because I watch it because I get so scared to see spoilers online, so I just like watch it immediately, and it's just like I got the one episode. It's great.
I'm like that with Drag Race.
Amazing.
You watching anything interesting, Josh?
I'm really enjoying Slow Horses, which is also on Apple Plus. I'm only in season 3 though, so no spoilers.
The other thing I've been rewatching is The Librarians, which has a lot of these very silly, tropey, fun things to do.
Nice.
Well, before we go, I just want to take a minute because we are all Buffy fans, and there was a sad news this week. I think we're just going to take a minute to say how much we are all fans of Michelle Trachtenberg, and wish her family, all the best wishes in the world. Yeah. So with that, we'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. One thing that's been going through my head a lot, and other neurodivergence might make sense of it. Since his name is Axacor, the thing that's been going through my head is the TikTok song. There's an axolotl on the pink stairs. And both of you look at me blindly, but
I am on TikTok, but I've unfortunately never encountered that, and that's okay.
I have encountered that, and I did not make that connection at all, and that's okay.
It's been in my head a lot because I have echolalia sometimes, and I get internal songs stuck in my head, and that song has been in my head a lot. And then he's like Axacor, and I'm like axolotl, and I am weird.
Good, Sara. Good, Sara.